I walk into the Broward County Medical Examiner's office to prepare for working under the medical examiner to do autopsies. I was the only female in the program. I arrived early. When I walked into the morgue, if you've ever been around dead people, there's a stagnation of energy because there's no energy. I failed to tell you that I'm a psychic medium since 8 years old. So that's an important piece. I walk in and time stood still. I came out of my body and I was hovering above my body, looking down at myself standing there. And the first thing I had was a flash of the vision I used to have as a child of the Egyptian pyramids. And then the next vision I saw was a slave girl. I could tell she was a slave girl in the tombs of Egypt, embalming bodies. And I knew that that girl was me in a different embodiment. I heard the voice that I've been listening to my whole life say, "You've been here before. You can choose the light. Choose the light." And then I was back in my body and I was like, what just happened? And what does that mean?
Hello and welcome back to the Cycle Starters podcast. I am your host, Heather Rebecca Wilson, and today I am so happy to be sitting down again with my dear friend, Julie Cielo, founder of Seasonal Somatics and host of the Thriving Scapegoat podcast. So if you caught our first conversation, which was over a year ago, actually, you already know that Julie carries this very rare blend of grounded wisdom and soulful truth-telling. Her work helps people move beyond functional freeze, people-pleasing, and self-abandonment so they can come back home into their bodies, reclaim their vitality, and start living from a deeper sense of self-trust. Today's episode is a second conversation, which means we're going to go even deeper into what has shifted since we last spoke, what she is building and becoming right now, and what cycles are beginning to activate in her life and lineage. And then, as always, we will close out with a mini galactic astrology reading. So if you are loving the content that we are creating here on the Cycle Starters podcast, please like, subscribe, comment, share, hype, do all the things. Thank you in advance for your support. I really appreciate it. It really supports the algorithm in getting our content in front of as many viewers as possible. So also, if you are interested in being in community with other cycle breakers, other cycle starters, who want to activate their highest soul mission. So you've already done your root work, you've already done your ancestral work, your trauma healing work. This is the space for you. This is my highest tier membership, the Cosmic Awakening Circle. That is my highest tier membership on Substack. So you can absolutely follow me on Substack for free. You can also pay for your subscription and get access to my other show, which is called the Cycle Architect Sessions. It's different from this show because, number one, it's not free and I'm not interviewing anybody. It's more of a conversation with a guest expert and we're both teaching and it's unedited. So this podcast is edited because I just like it to be clean and polished. So if that interests you, definitely sign up for the monthly subscription to the Cycle Architect, which is my publication on Substack. And then if you'd like to get access to guest expert-led workshops, also to a resource library that has almost 40 different workshops in it, including Julie's workshop, which was freaking awesome, you want to join the Cosmic Awakening Circle. There are many other perks, but I don't want to get into them now. I will put the links in the show notes. And then, of course, if you'd like to receive your own galactic astrology reading from me, those links will be in there as well. So without further ado, let's welcome my friend Julie back to the show. Hey, sis, how you doing?
Hanging in. World's on fire, but here we are.
Well, truth be told, you guys, this is take 2 of this recording because we had some very strange technical issues that I tried to overcome. I couldn't. And so Julie very graciously agreed to record this again. So I appreciate your flexibility. You know, sometimes technology doesn't want to cooperate, but I really believe in divine timing. And so here we are.
Definitely in surrender mode. So whatever is meant to be is meant to be. And I've learned to not be attached It's just the way life is sometimes that we just have to practice surrender more.
Yes, 100%. Well, so like I said in the intro, it's been over a year since you were on the show last. So can you give us an update? What has been happening in your life since we last spoke?
Okay, well, in March, I launched Seasonal Somatics, which is a nature based nervous system healing methodology and modality for women reclaiming their sovereignty in midlife. I've been in school. I've continued to do my training with Dr. Peter Levine's school, Somatic Experiencing. I'm moving into my advanced year. I launched the Thriving Scapegoat podcast in March as well this year. So lots of new things. I actually postponed the book. The book is called Seasonal Somatics, and it will be out in October because there's lots of moving parts. And in September, I'm releasing a product line that is really, really exciting, and a retreat in January. So lots happening all at one time, and I'm grateful for all of it.
There is a lot happening right now. So are there wait lists for the retreat and the book already if people are interested?
So you can find waitlists on juliecielo.com in the footer
Okay.
for the book. And the retreat is not up on the website yet. I actually am going down to Oaxaca in a couple weeks to solidify that retreat and bring back all of the goods that are a part of this product launch that I'm really super excited about in conjunction with the book. So, when you start a beverage company, and raise millions of dollars and go on a startup adventure, and then that ends and you start your life all over again in your 50s. It's not for the weak at heart.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I love that you are focusing on supporting women in midlife right now. I am in midlife. So I think you are speaking to a group of folks that really needs a lot of support right now, a lot of reframing of what is actually happening to make it empowering, right? And not be a victim to what's happening, to not pathologize what is happening to us as we basically go through a chemical castration. I mean, that's basically what it is with all of these hormones shifting like crazy. So I love that you are focusing in on this group. Tell me what inspired you to create Seasonal Somatics?
Well, I was going down the road of learning a lot about astrology. And even if you look back at my social media right after I closed the beverage company, I was talking a lot about astrology online. And I was going in that direction and studying with Stephen Forrest, who unfortunately recently had some scandal. It's really unfortunate how people are so quick to cancel folks these days. But I was studying with him. And what I noticed as I was in the midst of healing from transitioning from one company that I closed to creating something new is that I was really struggling. I was struggling with my identity. I've personally been in perimenopause to some degree since I'm 40 years old and I'm 51 now, but I'm in the heat of it right now. I don't want to say the worst part, but the strongest tide, the rip tide is real. And I created something that I needed because I didn't need to be in my head the way I was with astrology. That's the truth, is astrology was really keeping me in my head. And as a body worker and yoga therapist for 30 years, I know what it feels like to be in my head and what it feels like to be in my body. And I was noticing that the astrology was pulling me really into the cognitive. And that's not the direction that I needed for my own personal healing. So I went to a psychotherapist who started doing somatic experiencing on me a few years back. And I noticed right away that it was helping me in a way that talk therapy never did, yoga and meditation never did. Not saying that those things aren't relevant, just in a different way. So really addressing the nervous system specifically, which I personally think eludes a lot of people, even if they are yogis and meditators. The nervous system is different. And I still don't think many people that even, call themselves embodied really truly get it, because I know it took a long time for me to get it. And I had already been doing things for decades. So it had been really humbling, sort of start from scratch and see the transformation that I personally went through with my therapist, and then entering into school and the transformation that's continued to happen after. But, the thing that creates the seasons, Heather, is the fact that Earth is tilted. And just in her lack of uniformity and her flawed perfection, the earth itself, I think that there's so much wisdom to extract from nature itself. And I'm a non-dualist. So been a yogi since birth. And, I have my belief system around non-dualism and oneness consciousness. And the world we're living in right now is very polarizing. And because of the polarization, it's made me take a few steps back and ask, what is most important to me? What do I really, truly believe in? Because when you don't have family, you're estranged from your whole family, you're going through the most intense hormonal fluctuations you've ever experienced since puberty. Perhaps you're divorced. Maybe you've created a couple multi-million-dollar companies like I have, and you thought you knew what success was. And then you get to a stage of life where you're like, I'm not convinced that I really believe what I believed before. And my value set is shifting. And what does that mean for me as a woman without children or without a partner? As an entrepreneur, what does that all mean for me? So going through some really difficult times these past few years have forged the way for me to actually see things most clearly, because I had been writing this book for 4 years, but it wasn't coming through. The right book wasn't coming through. I had to purge quite a bit of trauma and grief and really heavy emotions before I was able to see the light.
Well, congratulations on this new chapter.
Thank you.
I'm really excited for the book. I'm excited for everything. I'm excited to see what you come back with when you return from Oaxaca. And I actually wanted to ask you, what is this connection that you have to the land in Mexico? Because for as long as I've known you, it's almost like you're making a pilgrimage there every year. Like it just calls you back. It's like a soul calling to be there. So can you tell us about that?
Yeah, it really truly is a soul calling. So this will be my 21st trip in a couple weeks.
Exactly.
In the past 6 years, that's how much I'm connected to this place. So I was in Guatemala during COVID. Why was I in Guatemala? Because I could not get into a Vipassana 10-day silent retreat. I've been sitting in silence for a minimum of 10 days a year for the past 33 years consistently. And it was COVID and I couldn't get into a Vipassana. So I was like, maybe I should open up my mind and a heart to a different type of silent retreat. I really needed it during COVID. So I booked a trip to Lake Atitlan in Guatemala and went to my first ever self-inquiry silent meditation retreat. I got giardia. I was pretty sick while I was there, and I had a gigantic spider behind a screen staring at me. I could literally see its eyeballs from across the room. That's how big the spider was. And my mother is the spider to me. Her spirit animal is a spider, weaving webs and sucking the life out of everyone around her. So anyway, I was being sort of tortured on this retreat with giardia and very ill. And I heard this message come through, go to Oaxaca, Mexico. And I'm like, what is that about? I was running the beverage company, doing fermentation at the time. And I thought it must be for the beverage company. So I found myself down in Oaxaca and asking all these questions about fermented drinks and creating content. And after the second or third time I was down there, I heard the next message and it said, no, Google Oaxaca, Mexico silent meditation. And I was like, wow, that's crazy. So I Googled it and sure enough, there was a self-inquiry silent retreat center on the coast of Oaxaca, Mexico. So I immediately booked it. And long story short, I ended up sitting with Sahajananda just months later. And the rest was history. I do have to admit that when I first met Sahaja, I was really taken back by this Romanian guru. And then the second time I sat with him, it wasn't like the first time. I was seeing things through a different lens as a trauma-informed practitioner. And I was like, wow, this guy is not trauma-informed. There were people writing in notes about boundaries, and he was saying things like, I don't believe in boundaries. Why do you all need boundaries? And I was horrified. And I remember sitting there thinking, this guy is horrible. He shouldn't be teaching. And the judgment that I was casting on this meditation teacher was really interesting to me. And so I kept sitting with him regardless of those feelings that I had, because I wanted to see what was next. I was following a thread. And what I come to really grasp after sitting with him for 6 years now is that he can only see through the lens that he's experienced, and he teaches from that place. My expectations for him to be more than that are my problem. And it offered me another level of healing, because we can all do this all day long, right? And stay the victim. But it's when we start looking at the 4 fingers pointing back and reflect and say, what part of this is mine? If I really want to grow, that means I'm going to have to get uncomfortable, even more uncomfortable. And I did that. I got really uncomfortable. I continued to journey through the learning of somatic experiencing while sitting with somebody that didn't understand my pain, because A, he's not a woman. B, he's not estranged from his family. Like, I could go on and on about the differences, but those differences shouldn't separate us. They should expand us. At least me, I'm responsible for me. So it taught me a lot about my expectations, my judgments, and the shadows that I continue to process on this life path.
All right. So it sounds like you had, in a way, a spiritual awakening while you were there.
Honestly, Heather, I feel like I have spiritual awakenings on a regular basis, and some are more painful than others. And, that's the thing. If you're committed to growth, you're committed to being uncomfortable.
I cannot disagree with you at all. Well, so for the folks that missed the first episode where we were in conversation about your ancestral healing journey, will you remind folks about your blood ancestors and where you come from lineage-wise?
Yeah, this is really interesting, especially after the reading that I had with you last year, the intergalactic astrology reading. I couldn't believe how connected the blood work that I had done was with the reading that you gave. So I did a 23andMe, and I discovered that I had a sizable percentage of lineage in Eastern Europe, which I wasn't surprised because my family came from Italy. I'm a 3rd generation Italian American. But what was interesting was it was 6% West African, 4% Egyptian, 3% ancient Sicilian. And then the overall blood work said I was 47% more Neanderthal than the average population. So I was like, wow, this is crazy that it showed up 4% Egyptian, because of all of the visions that I used to have of the Egyptian pyramids as a child. And then later in college, I ended up serendipitously studying with the father of mummification in mortuary college, and then having an outer body experience the last semester of a mortuary college while working in the Broward County Medical Examiner's office. Have I told you that story about the outer body experience I had?
Tell our community that story. I think that's a very, very fascinating story.
Well, I will say that I've only had a handful of outer body experiences in my entire life. I've had fewer and fewer profound spiritual experiences since I've lived in Los Angeles. I've had less than I've ever had in my entire life living here. And I don't know exactly why, but I digress. So there I am, 20 years old. I walk into the Broward County Medical Examiner's office to prepare for working under the medical examiner to do autopsies. I was the only female in the program. I arrived early. When I walked into the morgue, if you've ever been around dead people, there's a stagnation of energy because there's no energy. I failed to tell you that I'm a psychic medium since 8 years old. So that's an important piece. So I walk in and time stood still. I came out of my body and I was hovering above my body, looking down at myself standing there. And the first thing I had was a flash of the vision I used to have as a child of the Egyptian pyramids. And then the next vision I saw was a slave girl. I could tell she was a slave girl in the tombs of Egypt, embalming bodies. And I knew that that girl was me in a different embodiment, in a past life. And I couldn't believe what I was seeing. And I heard the voice that I've been listening to my whole life say, "You've been here before. You can choose the light. Choose the light." And then I was back in my body and I was like, what just happened? And what does that mean? What I gathered from it is that I was following a past life imprint in studying to be a mortician. I followed the thread of mortuary because I started hearing dead people talk to me when I was 8 years old. So I spent most of my childhood like a child slave in our home. So I was very horribly treated. But again, I digress. I would spend the rest of my time in cemeteries waiting for dead people to talk to me because I was fascinated with how is it possible that these people on the other side are able to make contact with me. That means that there's more to this than what I've been told. So I knew that I was following a past life imprint and that I was off track, but I didn't know what I was meant to do. So long story short, I found myself in a massage school and the therapist went into my stepfather's mouth to work on his jaw. And I said, oh, are you manipulating his masseter? And she looks up at me and she said, what's a young girl like you know anything about masseter, about anatomy? And I said, well, I'm in my final year across the street to be a mortician. And she said, well, you'd make a great body worker, massage therapist. When she said that, I felt a physical tap on my shoulder and I looked and no one was there. So I knew that I was getting the next message. And I've relied on this my whole life because I did not have support like most people have in their life. I was really dangling in space most of my life with very little support, but I do have a lot of support on the other side. And I've learned to lean into that a lot. It saved me many times. And so I was like, hey, Dad, I'll be right back. My stepfather was only a couple years older than me. He was more like my brother, but he was there. And I went into the financial aid office and I was paying for everything. No one ever helped me with anything my entire life other than my grandparents that died really early on in my life. So I went in, I said, how much will this cost? How long will it take me? And how much money can I make? And I got all the information. I actually enrolled before I dropped out of my last semester of mortuary school because I was unsure whether I should finish my degree. And I couldn't see the point in finishing the degree if I got a clear message that I needed to move in a different direction. And, just talking about this now really kind of eases my soul a little bit because starting something new at 51 years old is a little scary. And as I'm talking about it, I'm reminded of how supported I have been, even whenever it doesn't feel like I'm being supported. So I see now that I always have been supported, but there definitely is some resonance with Egypt. And I've always wanted to go. After that, I opened up a healing clinic and I worked for 20 years and saw tens of thousands of clients in my healing clinic in Florida as a body worker. And then I became a yoga therapist. And then I moved to LA 14 years ago after I got a divorce and I walked away from my private practice in Florida, which was very difficult to do, but I did it for the sake of growth and change, leaving a 22-year marriage and starting all over at 38 years old. And a place like Los Angeles took a lot of guts to do that without any family or partner support. And the rest has been history. I mean, I launched a brand, Firm Fatale, shortly after my move to LA. And most of my time in Los Angeles has been being a founder of a beverage company. But when that closed and I was in a really bad place with my identity, I was struggling, I knew that if I kept pulling on the string of healing and personal growth, that even though it felt like a really dark place 4 years ago, that if I kept pulling on that string and kept asking, how can I find my way back home, that it would reveal itself if I kept choosing the light. The message I heard, I think about that message that I heard so many times when I've been in dark places is just choose the light.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And as you're sharing this story, I'm wondering if you've ever received an astrocartography reading, because I'd be very curious to see if LA, Oaxaca, Egypt show up in vicinity of any of your lines. You know what I'm saying? Because we actually just had a workshop with a guest teacher a few days ago with Yvonne Irene, who's an amazing business astrologer and astrocartographer. but the topic was exploring ancestral healing through astrocartography. And it really gave me another lens to look at my connection to the Philippines, which is where my maternal ancestors are from, to look at West Africa, where my paternal ancestors are from, but also where I grew up in the DC area. And then also where I decided to move to settle down and put down roots, which is, Los Angeles, California. So I'd be so curious. Have you looked into that at all?
So when I first got into astrology a couple decades ago, I was working with a Jyotish astrologer named Camilla. Camilla's pretty famous, and she did a dasha reading on me, which is the same as astrocartography, but in Jyotish, in Vedic astrology, they call it your dasha lines. And I remember her saying that the strongest dasha lines that I had was actually south of Los Angeles. But that's all I really remember. But I think it'd be fun to do it again.
I think so too, because I noticed that LA is very, very close to, I can't remember, I think it's my North Node descendant line, which means it's around like partnerships that are involved with my future and my divine assignment. And I did meet my partner here. There was no way I was going to meet my partner in DC where I grew up. I just did not resonate with the place. I mean, I still have amazing childhood friends who still live there, but it was so interesting. DC was in this space on the astrocartography map that was almost like a blank space. It was like furthest from any line. So it's just interesting to me that I chose to incarnate there. But it makes so much sense that I decided to leave because I just wasn't feeling the vibe. But thank you for sharing the story of your connection to ancient Egypt, because you know this. I'm actually going on a retreat as a guest teacher to Egypt with my friend Paola Ashtar in November. So it's November 8th to November 20th. We are going to Cairo. We are going to Luxor, Aswan. We are going on a Nile cruise. We are going to Hurghada Beach. This is a luxury retreat. It is a spiritual retreat. So if you have been feeling the call to go to Egypt and go with a group of folks who are very serious about their spiritual work, their spiritual path, connecting with their galactic heritage. Orion is very much associated with ancient Egypt. Sirius, also the Lyra constellation, is very much associated with ancient Egypt. If you are feeling the call to explore those connections, I will put the link to sign up for this retreat in the show notes. I'm so excited. This has been in my field for a while. I think Paola got the hit that she needed to lead these retreats maybe just after COVID, and we had been in conversation about me going and guest teaching, but it was never the right time. And then when I got my Quantum Soul Guidance Galactic Astrology practitioner certification, she found me a few months later, and it just clicked like, okay, I get it now. This is the right time. So anybody who signs up through me is going to receive an Aquarian Age Initiation reading, which is one of my 30-minute readings. But anybody who signs up as a VIP with this retreat will get a Divine Blueprint activation reading for me, where we dive deep into your soul records and your galactic connections, and also look at the ancient asteroids that appear in your chart. I mean, believe it or not, there are tons of ancient Egyptian asteroids. There are Osiris, Hathor, Isis, Giza, the Sphinx, Ptah, and just to name a few. And we'll also see if you have any Atlantean asteroids too, because there happens to be a crossover between ancient Egypt and Atlantis. And then we can see if you have any asteroids related to Hyperborea, which is the first ancient civilization pre-Lemuria. And then, I think that's it. It's Hyperborea, Lemuria, Atlantis, and ancient Egypt. So just putting it out there. If you would like to go to Egypt and you'd like to go with me, I will put the link in the comments.
I would love to go with you, Heather. My North Node is in Sagittarius.
Yeah,
which
that makes sense.
basically is the truth, travel, and higher learning. And Egypt has been calling for a long time. They used my body during college for a PBS educational program. I had to pretend that I was a dead person and they mummified me.
I love it.
So I have lots of interest in Egyptian culture, not just because of my blood, but also from studying with the father of mummification while in college, and Egypt, we don't know what's going to happen with that region. So I think now is the time to harness and go.
Yes, 100%. And I would love to look at your chart and see what Egyptian's asteroids show up in aspect to your angles and your planets, fixed stars, and super cosmic points, because you definitely have a soul connection to ancient Egypt. Like, it's so obvious to me. I hope you can go with us.
I can't believe it's in the blood. Isn't that crazy? It's in the blood?
Yes, it's really, really crazy. It's just more evidence that what you were feeling, what you were sensing was real, right? There's no way around it.
It's wild.
It's super wild, but thank you for sharing that story, and I think there are some rooms where we don't share stories like that, but this is a space where we can share how we receive information in nonlinear ways, right? Where we can share experiences that we have that are beyond our 3D existence. So, yeah.
Something I will say, Heather, that I personally have been working through and the work I'm doing now with women, I saw myself as a slave girl. And I think I told you I was a child slave in this embodiment. And then I made myself into a slave when I left home in order to be enough. And the journey that my soul has been on in shaking this slave girl free to step into a new embodiment of queen. And I think I mentioned the seasons happen because of a tilt, because of an imperfection. And I really believe that even though it does feel like a chemical castration, perimenopause, that we're being offered something much more magical. And that's what my new offering is all about. It's called The Harvest, and it's an opportunity for women to see this very short but potent season called perimenopause as how nature shows up as late summer. In traditional Chinese medicine, there aren't 4 seasons, there's 5. And late summer is considered the forgotten season. And in some ways, I know that I'm not alone in feeling invisible sometimes in this stage of life. You're not producing children, yet you're not in retirement. You're in this weird place of, where do I really belong now? What are my values? So I'm really enjoying leaning into the mother that I can rely on, Earth, nature, the one that's never abandoned me, never harmed me, and always been there if I pay attention. Late summer is the season of receiving. That's what it mirrors, is the season of receiving. And what I'm noticing in myself and in other women that I'm working with is that because of these hormone fluctuations, it creates a lot of havoc in the nervous system. And it's almost like you're being pulled back into the lowest vibration you've ever been in a lot of ways, yet also on the threshold of becoming something brand new. And
yes.
And that's the pause that we need to acknowledge in nature that happens every year in late summer. There's a pause between the fullness of summer and the letting go of autumn. And it asks a profound question, like, what have I cultivated in my life? What am I finally ready to change? What do I want from this the rest of my life? And what matters to me? And I think if more women could pause and realize the ancient wisdom that comes out of systems like Ayurveda and traditional Chinese medicine, and lean into what's there instead of focusing on what's being taken away.
So much wisdom that you are sharing with folks right now. Thank you for putting this program together. I'm really, really excited. I think this type of support, this reframe, this inspiration is so needed, because yes, this is a threshold. This is a portal. And there's a way where we can look at it and feel empowered and actually feel excited and feel the abundance actually that is part of this. Well, so Okay, I want to talk some galactic astrology now because, we've been talking about ancient wisdom and I've given you a divine blueprint activation before, but today I wanted to take a deep dive into one particular placement of yours. And so for folks who are new to my work, who are new to the show, I am a quantum soul guidance galactic astrology practitioner and embodied ancestral healing guide. So galactic astrology will add an outer layer of nebulas, super cosmic points, fixed stars to your natal chart so that we can look at your soul's journey over eons of time. We look at past lives that are on planet Earth, but also past lives that are off planet. And the point of knowing your galactic placements isn't to feel superior, right, to people. It's not meant for you to feel special. It's so that you can connect to those multi-dimensional frequencies, your multi-dimensional self, your soul self, and use those frequencies to support whatever you're doing now in this life, right? Also, it's important for me to say that our traumas that we experience in our lives and past lives on Earth and even past lives off planet are often echoes of galactic traumas. So, you've been talking about this trauma of being the slave girl, right? Which is repeated in multiple lifetimes. It's likely that this happened off planet as well. So, yeah, it's just so fascinating. It's so interesting. And what I wanted to focus on today was your descendant and your Neptune conjunct the royal star Scorpius Antares. So there are 4 fixed royal stars. There's Antares, there's Fomalhaut, there is Aldebaran, and there is Leo Regulus. So the descendant represents the relationships that become our greatest mirrors. So we have the ascendant, which is our rising sign, and then the descendant, which is the other end of that axis. And the descendant is the part of the chart that reflects what our soul is learning through the people that we encounter and the partnerships that we create. So Neptune is the planet of dissolving. It's the planet of spirituality, compassion, imagination, and unconditional love. And it gives us this really beautiful ability to see the highest potential in people. And Taurus, which is one of the 4 royal stars, is associated with courage, strategic wisdom, vision, and heart-centered leadership. And so when I see these energies together, I don't see someone who is destined to have difficult experiences with people. I see someone whose soul is learning one of life's most profound lessons, which is how to keep an open heart while remaining deeply rooted in your own inner wisdom. So one of Neptune's greatest gifts is that it helps us recognize possibility, right? It's the planet of dreams. And it allows us to imagine what could be, right? To see the beauty, to see potential, to believe in growth. And then sometimes that same gift can invite us to move faster than our discernment. And Taurus brings a beautiful balance to this. So it's whispering to Neptune, keep your compassion, but let wisdom walk beside it. So you don't have to become more guarded. You don't have to stop believing in people. You don't have to dim your optimism. Your chart is simply inviting you to trust your own perception as much as you trust your heart. And because this placement is in your 6th house of daily routines and how you mentally organize your reality, I find this really, really interesting. This is the house of work and service and just like the small choices that we make every day to create lasting trust over time. I think it reminds us that our strongest connections, whether they are personal or professional, are built through consistency. They are built through integrity and shared values that are expressed in ordinary moments. And so when I step back and look at the chart as a whole, because you have Orion placements, right? That's very much connected to ancient Egypt. Your ascendant is on one of the other fixed stars, Aldebaran. So is mine. And now with this beautiful Neptune and Taurus signature, I really see somebody who has this extraordinary capacity to inspire others and envision what is possible. And so I think the invitation isn't to become less hopeful. it's to let wisdom become part of the hope, right? To let discernment become part of your compassion and to recognize that intuition is every bit as sacred as your generosity. And I think that's really the deepest gift of this placement. So it's like the more deeply you trust your inner knowing, the more naturally every relationship, collaboration, and opportunity begins to reflect that same frequency. And I think that is what Antares is teaching here. Real strength isn't about closing your heart. It's about allowing your heart and wisdom move together. And then when they do, your presence becomes something that is so incredibly powerful because people aren't just responding to your kindness. They're responding to the quiet confidence of someone who really, truly, deeply trusts herself. So how is this landing, my friend?
Just so apropos for the perimenopausal late summer journey that I'm on right now, because late summer is the season of discernment, and the yin yang meridian pair of late summer, the organs and their energies relate to everything that you are talking about. So it feels like an opportunity, if I practice what I teach, to receive this great change as pure possibility. It's funny, I just made a post about my 14-year anniversary in Los Angeles a few days ago, and I talked about this very thing. I've had a lot of traumas, a lot of hardships since I've lived in this city. It was a brave move to come here without a job, car, apartment, friend, with just a French bulldog puppy and no job, nothing, 14 years ago. So a lot of things have happened, and it made me reflect, because 2 7-year cycles in a row, you can kind of step back and say, well, what has happened and what has not happened? And do I still want to stay here? Is this place still right for me? And I got to thinking about all of the hard lessons that have happened. But what I noticed is that I haven't allowed it to make me cynical or jaded. And resilience isn't about building more walls. Resilience is about remaining with an open heart regardless of challenges. And so it's funny, I just made a post about this because, after 2 7-year cycles, you kind of step back and ask some important questions. And perimenopause is certainly turning up the heat, so to speak, to really discern, am I in the right place for what I'm trying to do? Is this still the right fit? Is this where I'll meet my next partner? Because that's something I really am calling in this year. And so there's a lot of power in being in the place of uncertainty, like Tarzan or Jane. Let's use Jane. Jane and Tarzan going through the jungle. You have to let go of that old branch in order to grab on to the next rung that's going to take you where you need to go. And I found myself in this dangling position before, but never with the concentrated wisdom that I can feel inside of me that I didn't have before. So it's all just perfect. Perfect.
Amazing. Well, that's 2 Uranus cycles. So that's right. 2 7-year cycles. That's 2 Uranus cycles, right? In different signs. So we had Uranus and Taurus, and then what was it? Uranus and Aries before that? Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
Lately things have really taken a major shakeup for me personally, as I'm on the verge of birthing these new things, offerings and soul calling. So I'm just, like we said from the very beginning of the call, just in surrender mode.
Beautiful. I'm so happy to have you on the show again. I love what you're doing. Where can people find out about the harvest? Where can they find out more about working with you, the retreat, all of the things that you have in the works?
So the harvest will only be offered one more time, online and in person, next Saturday, August 15th. After August 15th, I won't be offering the harvest again until next year, until next late summer, because I'll be moving into my fall content and also launching a product line and the book and everything. So everything is found at juliecielo.com, because like I said, the harvest will be available next week online for free and in person in Venice. So, depending on where people are at, they can join in worldwide or locally here in LA. And then after that, we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Gotcha. Perfect. Okay. Well, so my dear, I have one last question for you that I ask of all of my podcast guests. And I've actually asked you this question before, but I find that the answers shift and change, right? Because we're constantly evolving. So what are the new cycles that you are starting in your lineages in this lifetime?
The new cycles that I am starting have less to do with being generous with people that haven't earned and more to do with discerning and leaning into those that have put in the effort and energy and moving in alignment with that wisdom rather than being stuck in old patterns out of survival.
Beautiful, my friend. Thank you so much for sharing your medicine and your wisdom on the show again. Thank you for being in dialogue with me. You guys, don't miss the harvest. I will put the links in the show notes below. Also, don't miss my free activation called Cycle Starter to Cycle Architect. That's happening August 19th. So it's for seasoned healers, seasoned practitioners who have done their ancestral healing work. They've done their trauma work, but they're still standing at the threshold, right? And they want to build what's next. So I will be sharing some galactic astrology, some quantum soul guidance, and some pleasure-led integration. I will put the link in the show notes below. Julie, this has been amazing. Thank you.
Amazing. Two incredible complimentary offers for anyone that's listening to us right now that I sincerely hope that they receive and allow in. And Heather, when is the Egypt retreat again? What is the date?
It's November 8th to November 20th. So the clock is ticking on getting tickets for that. I think the discount codes have expired already because I think there was an early bird phase that has now concluded, but it's not too late to join. So yeah, if you're listening to this and feeling inspired, feeling called, absolutely, yeah, join us in Egypt for this spiritual retreat of a lifetime. And just can't wait for your book. Cannot wait for just you reporting back after going to Oaxaca again. What will this be? Your 22nd time going?
It'll be my 22nd trip.
Yeah.
And very excited to come back and share some really incredible gifts that are being given to me that I'm going to be able to share with other people. So thank you so much for having me, Heather.
No problem. All right, you guys, we'll see you next time on the Cycle Starters podcast. Take care. Bye, everybody. Bye, Julie.